Put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, Tog tips, and image reviews to help you improve your photography. Here's your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, that's me. Thanks for joining me tonight. It is great to see all of you here for TogChat episode number 38. And I'm really thrilled to see so many of you are here already. We got Tom, we got April here, John Campbell's here, James Parrish, Toby Hines, Damien, Louise. It's great to see all of you guys. Please take a second, check in, let me know where you're from. It's always honestly really kind of cool to see how people show up here from all over the world to talk about photography. So listen, gang, before we get going, I need all of you to do me a really, really quick favor. And I know I ask this every time, but it really, really helps. So the first thing is, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please hit that subscribe button right below the video there, okay? But actually, what I would like for you all to do tonight, I want to try and set a new record for how many people we can get watching TogChat tonight. So in order to make that happen, I need your help. If you guys would take a second and head out there on your social media, mainly Facebook and Twitter, and share the video and let people know that we are live right now, that you're watching TogChat and photo reviews, and tell them they should check it out. And hey, listen, if you're not following me already, please, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those are the three that I am the most active on. I post there pretty much every day. Trevor, I saw that you just tweeted about it. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. And of course, the last piece is, gang, at some point since you're here, please do hit that like button underneath. It would be greatly appreciated. So listen, I know that most of you are already subscribers, so I hope that you have seen the video that I posted this past weekend. How do you define a professional? Really, you know, this was designed to start a conversation. In fact, one of the things I'm really excited about, DIYphotography.net, our friend John Aldred, who is frequently here for these talk chats and weighs in the comments, his cohort at DIYphotography.net, Dunja, she wrote an article about this video, which actually started a really great thread of comments and kind of a debate, but a very, very healthy one about what really makes a professional photographer. So if you haven't checked it out, please check it out. It's certainly, you know, my word is not the end all of what defines professional, but really what I wanted was to give people something to think about and consider beyond that whole obvious idea of, hey, you make money or you pay your bills with it, you're a professional. Because believe me, I've met a lot of people that make money and pay their bills with cameras, and they are far from professional. So that being said, please make sure you check that out. But I've got a bunch of pictures lined up tonight, gang, so I want to dive in here. The hour goes by like way too fast. I want to dive in, and then obviously, as I always do at the end of the night, I'll try and set a little bit of time aside to do some Q&A, and then, of course, we'll be back Wednesday night for a full hour of Q&A. So first up in the group tonight, we have a shot that was submitted by Shahriar from Dhaka, Bangladesh. And if you would like to have your photographs reviewed here on TogChat, there are two ways that you can do it. Hopefully, you're a member of my Facebook group, but if you're not, it's real simple. The link is in the description below. You can see it right here. Actually, you can't see it on the screen. It's in the description below, okay? But by all means, please join the group. If by chance you're one of those folks that just really hates Facebook, doesn't want anything to do with Facebook, you can still submit your photos to be reviewed. This link is in the description below the video. It's tog.chat/photo review. When you go to that link, there's a short form there. You're going to be asked to provide a little bit of background information on the shot. It's the same information that we ask for in the Facebook group. And then you'll be given the directions for how to upload your photo. So if you would like to have your image reviewed, that's what you do to get it reviewed. So this shot, as always, gang, let me give you the background. The specs for the shot are on the screen. You can see them in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. This is Shahriar's first post to the group, so welcome. This came from the Facebook group. He is a hobbyist photographer. He likes portrait photography, and especially he likes to photograph his wife. This is her in the photograph. He generally shoots outdoors in natural light, so this was one of his first attempts at shooting indoors in a studio-type setting. The goal was to get a professional-looking studio photograph. Cool. So overall, he felt that he did a fairly good job, but he's really struggling with the ideas of posing, and he didn't really have a clear idea on what type of post-processing to do in the image. So, if you think about it, gang, even those of you that have been shooting people for a while, you've all been at this point, like, okay, I'm ready to start with lighting. Where do I put my lights? What modifiers to use? I'm ready to start with posing. How do I do that? What looks good? I'm ready to start with Photoshop or Lightroom. Where do I begin? So, these are really, really common things that we've all been through. And if you're being honest, you continually go through as you're learning new things and trying new things. So he did do the processing in Photoshop. He did some skin smoothing, some color grading, and some sharpening. And if he could make any changes, his feedback was he would probably have gotten another flash unit and possibly added a hair light to get some separation from the background. The way he lit this shot, which is definitely worth mentioning, the picture was taken in a bedroom. So this is another great example of problem solving. It was done in a bedroom. He hung up a black piece of cloth on the wall, and his light source was one single Yangwano. It was a YN685. On camera. He doesn't own a wireless trigger yet. He bounced it off the white ceiling. So you guys have seen me do the bounce flash thing many, many times in my YouTube videos. I talk about it all the time. So here we have it. So I have to tell you, for me, so I'm going to give you my opinion first. My opinion is you're a very lucky man. Your wife is absolutely beautiful. So your challenge from me is you have no excuse not to be able to take lots and lots of pictures and really continue to build and develop your technique because you've got a great subject, okay? For doing bounce flash, working in obviously a non-studio setting, but a very, very small space, you really did some excellent work here. Now, the one thing that you didn't mention in your post, but I'm pretty sure you did, and that is it would appear as if there is potentially a reflector down underneath, not very close to her, but maybe out a little ways. And that's okay because it's definitely helping give you a little bit of fill into her eyes and kind of giving you a nice catch light, which is not the natural catch light on the top, but still it's a catch light that gives the eyes a little bit of pop. So let's talk first. I want to go through kind of the order of your post. Let's talk first about posing. Your pose is perfect. But let me explain why. New/young, we'll use those two words interchangeably. Photographers tend to think that they have to do something that requires some special skill or some special formula with their subject in order to be able to call it a good picture. There's got to be like, oh, I know that if I do this, it's good. No. The easiest and honestly the best place to start when you start photographing people is simply start with body language. Forget that P word. Pose. You guys have heard me use this analogy many, many times before. Pose is a 4-letter word. Remember what your mama taught you. Don't use 4-letter words, okay? So, what works very, very well here is your wife, obviously, she is relaxed. She is comfortable. She looks very confident. You did an excellent job of going with a slightly low camera angle, so you're looking up at her. Especially as a Westerner here, in the U.S., we tend to see women in Eastern countries oftentimes shown in kind of more of a submissive view. So what I love about this is, at least from my side of the ocean, this really kind of beats the stereotype. She is dressed rather traditionally, but she is in a position of power and authority by looking up to her. And of course, in addition to the fact that she's beautiful. I do wish that the top she's wearing did not have the patterns. However, I also fully understand that more traditional Indian garb tends to be very colorful and full of prints and patterns, etc. So that's kind of more of a personal taste thing also. Literally the only thing that I will, as I say, ding you on with regards to the content of the picture. I want to talk about post-processing separately. But with regards to the content of the picture, I really, really wish that you had the hair up off of her eye just a little bit more. I mean, your wife has beautiful hair, but in addition to beautiful hair, she's got incredible eyes. So for me, I really want to see those eyes. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, you know that recently I posted a little tiny Instagram type video tutorial. It's like one of those, it's like 30 seconds long. And it talks about the idea that if you want to do hands in the hair and you're not sure what to do, hide the fingers. And that's exactly what you did. And it looks perfect. You don't need to see the fingers. We understand that if the person's hand there, in all likelihood, they have fingers. We do not have to show them. So excellent. Really, really well done. I will admit I wish the watch wasn't there. I get the feeling that maybe this was kind of a little bit more of an impromptu setup. But I don't think the watch adds anything. It is a little bit of a distraction. At least it's a color tone very similar to her arm, so it's not like it's glaring at us, okay? But in terms of your pose, and for now while you're getting started, don't overthink posing. You've got a beautiful wife. If she enjoys being in front of your camera and you keep her relaxed, you're going to do some wonderful things just by encouraging her to be herself. Focus more on emotion, moods, as opposed to exactly what you should or shouldn't do. Let the body language control it, and you'll be amazed at what you can come up with. Now, you mentioned post-processing, and you're not really sure like what post-processing you should do or shouldn't do. You know, overall, you did a really, really good job. Your blemish removal, all that stuff. Where I struggle with your image a little bit, and this is now part personal taste and preference, but it's also what is considered to kind of be a standard acceptable norm. I really wish your blacks were black, or at least closer to black, and not kind of so milky gray. It would be one thing if the background black was kind of the milky gray, but the problem is that milkiness carries through into her hair. She clearly has very dark hair, and we get shadow areas in here that are also milky. Even the top, which has clearly got black in it, it's really kind of more gray. We need to get some of that black in. And literally, that's as simple as, here in Lightroom, I'm just going to grab the black slider, and I'm going to pull that black slider down a little bit. And boom, just, I pulled out, we don't even need 13. We can go about 10 out, 10, 11 out, and we get blacks where we ought to have blacks, okay? That, I believe, will make a really, really big difference for you. And then, there are some other things that you could experiment with here. As an example, even something as simple as just pulling the vibrance up, not the saturation. Always be careful about using saturation. Go with vibrance first, but bring the vibrance up is going to make that yellow pop a little bit. It's going to give a little bit more jump to the colors on the arm, and it's also going to bring out the peaches and the reds that are in her face. But all in all, absolutely gorgeous. I like what you did from the standpoint of composition. It's simple, and it works. Your wife has absolutely beautiful eyes. She's got a great expression. It's hard not to look at it, and that's a complete success. You'll find some people will debate you over, well, maybe you could have cropped a lot tighter. There's a million options for what you could have done there, but nothing about this is bad or wrong. I think you did a really, really great job, okay? All right, so I do want to move on here to the next one. I also want to mention to you guys, please, if you haven't done it yet, don't forget, hit that like button, share what we're doing, comment. Also, if you have the ability, my Patreon program has just very recently gone through kind of a pretty major overhaul. If you are able to sponsor, you might want to at least stop by and check it out, because you can sponsor for as little as $1 per video. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. And even that $1 per video, you can put a cap on it. So you might only spend $2 or $3 a month. Anything is appreciated. It helps me build the channel. The money that I make on Patreon does not go into my pocket. It allows me to hire additional help to create the blog articles, to do more work with videos, to get more stuff out on social media, to help grow what we're doing. Okay, so let's move on to our second shot, okay? So this picture is from Elliott Busch, who is in Brisbane, Australia. So we're going down under for this one. This shot was submitted via the submission link. So Elliott is not yet a member of my group, but hopefully that will change very soon. So your stats are in the upper left-hand corner there. This shot was natural light, natural setup. It was done at midday where the sun was very high in the sky. And also, Elliott tells me that this was done in the Brisbane summer, which means, in his words, it was bloody hot. The photo was taken all natural light, so no reflectors, no flash, no fill, nothing, okay? In his words here, this is part of a photo series that he's working on with this model. The series takes inspiration from pagan folklore of magical forest entities. That's a mouthful. We're going to come back to that because that is kind of important here as we review this image. Overall, he is highly satisfied. James Parrish, thank you so much. And James, you guys are doing a better job than I am. You're right, guys. That little dollar sign that you see down in the bottom left-hand corner, that is Super Chat. So obviously tonight is a photo review night, but if you have questions that you want to be sure that I answered, make sure you can start with just $1, okay? Any amount, on up to $500, but your name will show up colored just like you see James. The more you donate, the more characters it gives you to type in to ask questions, and I promise you that any Super Chat that gets posted, I will pause, I will answer that Super Chat for you, okay? So back to our shot here from Elliott. And James, thank you again very much, seriously, okay? He's happy with the result. The model was very happy with the picture. He's happy with it. He's very happy with the direction this whole series is going. If he could shoot it again, there isn't anything that he would really change. However, he wants to expand on the theme and possibly explore the model interacting more with the environment and developing different looks. Okay, so as we get into this, there's a couple things that I want to point out here because this is something that I try to really promote in my Facebook group. So I'm going to be completely honest, and I'll explain why in a moment. I'm not a fan of this picture for a lot of reasons. But before I allow myself to make any judgments, I have to be honest. As I read Elliott's background on it here, I don't understand anything about pagan folklore or magical forest entities, okay? So the great thing about the world that we live in, I'm going to switch this screen over here, and when I do that, I'm also going to show you a Google search. So I literally took that phrase that Elliott gave me, pagan folklore, magical forest entities, and I typed it into Google, and I hit the images tab. Now I have a sense of what that is and what it looks like. So I actually have some reference now, okay? You know, I could have maybe guessed based on his words, but now I have a sense of kind of what he's going after. So that allows me to come back to his images with certainly a lot more, understanding of really what he's after here. So that being said, Elliott, I have to be honest, and I have to say that I think you are off to a good start, but I don't think that you're really achieving your goal yet. So certainly there's a certain amount of subjectivity here. If, at the end of the day, if you're thrilled with what you have, and if your model is truly thrilled, then everything I say doesn't matter. But if you really want to up your game, which would be my goal for you, I think you have to understand a few things. So let's start with the model first. The model's body language is a little awkward. So first of all, let's start with her left hand, which is the hand on camera right holding the dress. The turned out hand that we're seeing and the fingers, very awkward. Elegant would be the wrist broken out, okay? That's what we need to get in there. Parminda, thank you so much. Let me finish this picture and I will get to your question, okay? So also it would be a really, really helpful thing, Elliott, if her elbow was relaxed ever so slightly. So I don't mean bent, but just relaxed. A simple rule of thumb for posing, for those of you that that are kind of trying to learn about posing but still afraid of, well, how do I know one pose from the next, etc.? A simple rule to follow is if it breaks or if it bends, bend it. So it doesn't mean that it's got to be like a hard bend, but just relaxed, okay? So that's the first thing that I see there. Secondly, I really wish her chin was not tucked so hard. The shots that I saw on that Google search, the people are outstretched. They're like welcoming their environment and the nature around them. This is withdrawn, and that's what body language tells us. That's not my opinion. That's science, okay? If her chin was up more, she doesn't have to look at the camera. If her chin was up more and she was looking out, it would have been definitely much more relaxed. Another piece, and this is a detail thing that in a magazine, you will not see this. And that is the fact that I realized it was really hot, or excuse me, it was bloody hot when he shot this picture. But the wrinkles on the dress, there's kind of really no excuse for that. They need to be ironed, steamed, or at a minimum, you've got to retouch them out afterwards. But ultimately, I'm not so sure that for this pose / posture, this was the right dress, because the way she's pulling it and it's kind of tight against her leg at the bottom, it's just, there's an awkwardness to it. The other thing that you really need to try if you really want these images to pop, and that is you've got to work on limiting your depth of field dramatically. If you limit your depth of field, you are going to have more focus on the subject, and you're going to have a much more dreamy feel. And then the last piece is, based on those images that we saw when we looked them up on Google, I would encourage you not to shoot at midday, because all of those images make it look like these people are deep in the forest with lots of trees. So maybe you don't have a lot of trees in a forest near you, but you can get a better effect if you're not working in intense sunlight. So I would encourage you to maybe try shooting later in the day, maybe even around dusk, or even kind of doing like a sunup type thing. But definitely limit your depth of field. Try a longer lens. You're shooting with a 70-300 lens, and I believe that's a crop sensor. FJH, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the support. Thank you. If you go to a longer focal length, that's going to help you make the depth of field much more shallow. So even at f4, and for that matter, if you go all the way up to 300 millimeter, even at 5.6, yes, you're going to be shooting further away from her. But for a shot like this, where you're trying to kind of get that drama and everything, it's going to take your shots to the next level. And then the last piece, Elliot, be really, really careful with your exposure. You're right on the edge, but you're on the verge of losing detail in the dress and the outfit here. So it's important to make sure that you've got that detail. I think you've got a great idea. And what I love about what you're doing is you've got a very, very clear focus on kind of the feel and the mood that you want. We've had a lot of folks in my Facebook group recently posting shots where they're kind of going for these storytelling concepts. And believe me, it's hard to do, because the minute you tell people what the story is, suddenly you're held to a standard. Did you tell the story? Tony G, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, Tony. Thank you. It's a little bit harder when you give yourself that story to work to. So I'm not discouraging the story, but I am saying, you've got to really, really work on the details. I think you're off to a great start, but let's work on the details. All right, so let's switch over here really quick. Parminda, and I see some of you have been trying to help him out, so maybe I want to go back and see if you got it. Parminda did a super chat here, and he asked, he was shooting with a new SD card, 128 gigabyte. When he tries to review his images, it says that he cannot play back the image with the question mark symbol. So, Parminda, are you trying to play these back with in the camera or not in the camera? Let's just see here. I see that David asked about formatting the camera. Yep, okay. Well, carrying like and privilege of others. Big fan. Thank you, Jack. So, Parminda, I see that you're shooting with a Canon Rebel T2i with a 50 millimeter. What are you where are you trying to view the image? So as soon as you can, give me another update there. I'll come back to your question. We'll get this worked out for you. Plus, a lot of the folks in here in the chat that are trying to help you, they're on the right trail, but we don't have quite enough information yet. So we want to know, when you say you're trying to review it, is this in camera still, or are you on a computer? Because it's also possible that you've got the drive locked. There's a bunch of little things that could be going on here. So that's what we need to get to the bottom to. So let us know that little piece. Okay. In the meanwhile, I am going to switch back here and let's move on to our next shot. So we'll come back and we'll help him out. Okay. CJ Munoz photo. Thank you for tweeting out about TogChat. Greatly appreciated. Okay. Okay, so this photo is from Cuemadi in Atlanta, Georgia. This is his first time posting in my group, so welcome. This is a shoot that he did with a model who's looking to build her portfolio for acting jobs and such, quote unquote. And that's definitely a little piece that I want to talk to you guys about, is the model looking to build her portfolio for acting and such, okay? He's working on his lighting techniques because he wants to stand out as a new photographer. Awesome. Asked her to bring a red formal gown that will draw some attention. I would say that gown draws attention, yes. He wanted her to really stand out from a plain background with the lighting and the outfit. So he visually put all his lighting together before the shoot and then brought her in, and things just flow from there. Very, very good. I always love to hear about planning, okay? He lit this with an Impact VSD 300, and the backlight, which you see, is an Alien B ring light at about 1/32 power. So the only thing that I don't have here for Cuemadi is if there was a modifier on this, which it looks like maybe he actually didn't use a modifier. So, whoops. Geez, guys. You want to see the image? Like, come on, you don't trust me to like describe it to you? Sorry, gang. So there's the image, okay? One of these days I'm going to do that, and I'm going to talk about the coolest image ever and just not show it to you. I'm sorry. So Cuemadi does his post in CS2 and Lightroom. He edits most of his pictures with frequency separation, and he does do, the usual color, highlights, and sharpness in Lightroom. He may do the same in Photoshop, and overall, he's very pleased with the outcome of this shot. He's also working on editing hair so that the only thing in this, so he sees that as the only thing in the image that he needs to work on. Okay, so now, guys, you should be able to see the photo. I apologize. That being said, let's get back to Cuemadi's photo here. So this is one of those shots for me that at first pass, it's like, whoa. And then I have to be honest, the more I look at it, I have a couple small issues. And they're small. So they're nitpicky things that will help take this image to the next level. And then I told you guys I want to mention the bit about the model looking to build the acting portfolio. So let's talk about the image itself first, okay? I really do think this would have been much more fun if you couldn't see the picture. So Cuemadi, seriously, like at first pass, awesome. I think your lighting, the planning that you did, your idea for the red dress with her beautiful, rich, dark skin tones, excellent. Makeup looks really good. So a few little things about what we have here. I really, 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 really wish that this hair was not stuck on the eye. This is not something that you want to be retouching. This is something that you've got to get that in camera. And believe me, Cuemadi, you're not alone. A lot of the people watching this, you have got to place more emphasis when you're shooting about clean lines with the hair on the face. You do not want to get into the habit of having to retouch that stuff all the time, because this is a great example. The hair is just too close to the eye. So he could certainly go in and he could clean up these strays here, but the easiest way to clean those up is not to remove them, it's actually to fill them in, which gives you the net end result of the hair still really being close to the eye, okay? For me, and I realize this is a little different for everybody's taste, but I'm sticking with the fact that this young woman wants to do something professional with this picture. For me, because the eyes are minimized, this picture becomes all about the booty. I mean, the dress is really low cut. She's got a butt. and she gets lost in it. And I'm sorry, regardless of taste, this woman is beautiful. So I don't want part of her anatomy competing with her beauty. So that's the big thing. The hair that's sticking out on this side, on camera right, it would be very easy to take that out in post. Should have been found in camera, yes. But that's the kind of thing, I'll be completely honest with you. If I was doing this shot and everything was going well and we were on a roll and I just happened to notice this, I would probably let that slide with the attitude, I'll fix that in post. Because I would have lost my momentum. And while it only would have taken a second to fix, it's also only going to take me a few seconds in post. This, however, though, is not something I can clean up easily in post. Two last things, if I'm being really nitpicky about the way the shot was done, and then there is two other issues that I want to discuss. One, this is super nitpicky. I really, really wish I didn't see the little bit of breast that's here in the dress. So a little bit, just a hint more of a turn so that that gap is not there. And this hand pressed against the leg here is I'm not sure what to do with my hand thing. If the hand was brought softly around to the side a little bit more, I don't mean like all the way to the side so it looks like she's holding onto her butt, but just with the palm relaxed onto the body, a little bit more onto the side, it also would have given you a slight bit more bend in her elbow, just a little, and it would have made things look much, much, much more relaxed. With regard to the processing, I'm going to beg you, you are on the verge of doing really, really nice work here. I love your lighting concept. I love the fact that, even though it does kind of make the picture very much about her butt, I love the fact that you are looking up at her. You're putting her in a position of power, even though she's kind of looking over her shoulder. She's looking down at you. All that's great. Back off on the frequency separation, please. As I look at this image, let me come up here. There's nothing real about her skin. Up here in her face, there's no texture at all. Here on her arm, there's way too much texture. So you've got extremes going on here. This woman is beautiful. Clean up the skin, blend it and even it, but don't do overkill. It really doesn't work. And now this brings me back to the very first sentence in Cuemadi's post. This is a shoot for a model who's looking to build her portfolio for acting jobs and such. So the first thing I want to make sure that we're all clear on, and this is me mincing words, so I'm going to be completely honest, but vocabulary is important. Models don't need acting shots, and actors don't need modeling shots. Now, if a model is going to get into acting, that's cool. But an actor or actress, I'm going to use the word actor interchangeably, please, okay? An actor does not need a picture of her butt, period. Not unless a casting agent has called and said, hey, we've got this gig, and it requires that you have a really big booty, so can you take us a picture of your butt so we can see it in advance? And all they want is a selfie. Literally, they want a mirror selfie. That's what they will ask for. They don't want a studio shot. So the problem of it is, the only kind of acting gig that this girl's going to get from this picture, she's going to be one of those very stereotypical hip-hop girls twerking in some rapper's video. That's not really acting. So, we have to understand what the purpose is here. So I'm going to treat this as if it's just modeling, and I'm going to take acting off the table in terms of, what we're doing here, because this is not a shot that has any value to anyone at all for acting. None. For the sake of modeling, if she is modeling with an agency, this is also not going to help her. And there's a simple reason for that. You don't see pictures like this that feature someone's butt in advertising. You just don't. So it's a cool picture. It's a neat picture. She's beautiful. Lighting is awesome. But if you are doing these shots for the purpose of someone's portfolio, now remember, just like photographers, there are people that take pictures for the fun of it, and there are people that take pictures professionally. If she wants to model professionally, this picture is not going to help her. So that's something that you need to consider. Otherwise, you're just basically taking pictures for the fun of it. That's it. Okay? So I would love to see you. My challenge to you is go back and reprocess this image. I think you've got a great image here. Use it to practice a little bit of removing the hair on the side, but I would reprocess it and go from there. Okay? All right. So I see that we are still working on Parminda's solution here. Can't view it in the T2i. It started after image number 169. You're able to review image from 1. So, Parminda, have you taken the card out of your camera yet and tried to put it into a computer to see if you have more than 169 images? That would be the next question I have for you. I'd like to know if you've removed it. Mark, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. I really appreciate the support. Parminda, let me know if you've actually removed the card from the camera and tried it in the computer. That would be the next thing that I'd like to know as we go through this, okay? So, all right. Now, let's move on to our next shot. This one's from Damien. Damien's, we got another one from down under. Damien's on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. So all of your stats are up in the upper left there. This was his first shoot where he booked a makeup artist, and he asked an acquaintance to sit for him, and he had an idea going into it. So first of all, congratulations on the makeup artist. Welcome to the dark side. Now the real fun begins, believe me, okay? He wanted to go with a very clean, fresh look, something that would accentuate the eyes. He really wanted to focus on a really good connection. So they went with light makeup coverage to even out the skin tone. Also used a little bit of makeup on the neck and the shoulders to even things out. He wanted beautiful as opposed to beauty. Simply had her hair pulled up and clipped in the back. This is what he had told her before the session. He had also discussed with her in advance the idea of shooting bare shoulders. So all those arrangements were made in advance. And that seems like a really small little thing, guys. But it's actually a really big thing. So in my studio, like literally, I have tube tops in 2 different sizes. I have smalls and mediums because mediums actually stretch really big if needed. So I have smalls and mediums in black, white, and nude. Okay? A lot of women would be completely okay with taking their shirt off and sliding the bra straps off and or doing like a strapless bra. But if you're truly a gentleman, you're not going to make that assumption. It's better to plan ahead. Plan ahead so that you've got a tube top there, or you at least know if you don't have access to a tube top, that they're going to be okay with a strapless bra so that you're not putting yourself at a disadvantage by making your subject uncomfortable. You can get tube tops online for like $2 or $3. I literally buy a bunch of mine from tubetop.com. So I believe that's the site, or tubetopcompany.com, something like that. But if you do a Google search for tube tops, you'll be able to find suppliers online where you can get them really dirt cheap. Okay. So his subject is an everyday single mother. She'd never modeled before. She's been going through some personal challenges. So he wanted to do something to really help her build her confidence. He used a Thunder Gray pop-up reflector as the background. It's a clamshell lighting setup, which we can tell from the catch lights that we have in the eyes here. He's got an Edelman chrome with a 70 centimeter beauty dish and a sock, boomed, and overhead. He makes a point to note that he really likes round catch lights where possible. And then he's got an Edelman chrome. Kathy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. He's got an Edelman chrome with a softbox on the floor angled up. And then he also used, and this is a great note, I've never shown this in a video, and it's something that I should show in a video for tight spaces. He's using a Walmart reflector, but not as a reflector. He's using it as a flag. He's got it placed above the model to prevent light from hitting the backdrop because he's working in a fairly small space. Okay, so raw conversion, lens correction, spot healing, iris clarity, eyes brighten, mild vignette, adjustments for contrast, whites and black. In Photoshop CC, he lightened the crow's feet. He didn't take them out. He kept them there, which is very cool. Lightened the crow's feet using passes of the clone stamp at about 12%. Camera right, he balanced it using the face aware liquify tool, which means basically what he's saying is he made her eye a little bit bigger. And I would say that he did a very good job in the sense that, all right, Kathy, we can arrange for that. He did a very good job in the sense that if you're going to use that face aware liquefy tool to balance out the face, don't turn your person into an alien. In other words, no human being is symmetrical, period. They're just not. If you ever meet that person, it would be wise to not walk but run in the other direction. Okay? So I think that he's done a very good job here in the sense that he made her eye a little bit bigger. If you look closely at her face and all of the body language and the musculature in her face, it's definitely very obvious to see how she could be a little bit of a squinter in one eye. So he's made it a little bigger without making it exactly the same. And that's exactly how you want to approach it. So the things that Damien would like to improve on his, efforts here, the two strobes, in his opinion, were a little bit overkill in the space, but he couldn't reduce the power anymore or move them any further away. So that's why he wound up at F13, which you can see there. He needs to get in the habit of setting his base ISO at 64, which actually that was going to be my suggestion. The D810 does have a base ISO of 64, which would have knocked that F13 down a little bit, but still, not a whole lot. They're powerful strobes. Part of the moral to the story is there, gang, be careful about buying super heavy-duty, high-powered strobes unless you really, really, really have a need for them. In my studio space that you guys have all seen the videos of, I use like 130 and 150 watt second strobes. I don't use super powerful strobes. There's no need at all. Plus, you save yourself a lot of money that way. You can get more of them, which is cool. Okay. He needs to work a little bit on his dodging and burning so he can get a little bit more chin separation from the neck. And also constant interaction with the sitter certainly help bring out the connection that's expressed in the image. So, yeah, Damien, first of all, what I love about this image, there's a lot of little things we can nitpick if we were looking for like a high-end portrait here. What I love about this image is there's a connection. We're seeing some images tonight, especially the very first one we saw with, the young Indian wife and now this shot. We're seeing some images with some really, really strong subject photographer connections. We tend to get so hung up in the gear. You get the personality right, all the other stuff doesn't matter. Like, it literally doesn't matter. And so for me, Damien, I think that, you've accomplished a great thing here in the sense that clearly, here's a person that's not used to being in front of the camera. She's not a model. As you mentioned, she's going through some tough things in her life. So, you've given her an opportunity to kind of have a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of fun, but you also managed to get the nerves to go away and you were able to connect with her. So that in itself is a big part of what makes this shot really, really nice for me. I like the idea that you went with mild makeup. I like the idea that you left the crow's feet in. And believe me, none of this is politically correct stuff. In fact, I had the big conversation in my college class that I teach today with my students about, how much retouching is too much. Is it inappropriate that we retouch so much stuff because, it makes people feel inadequate, all that stuff. It's got nothing to do with the politics that I say. I like the fact that you kept it kind of natural. The kind of natural stuff works here because of the personality. And for that reason, I absolutely love it. The fact that the hair is a little bit rough, that it's not perfect, awesome. Some people are going to say that they wish you had just a tiny bit more separation between the hair and the background. I'm kind of on the fence. Again, for me, those little things don't bother me when a shot clicks this well, when the personality is that great. You're going to have some people look at it and say, oh yeah, you definitely need to have better separation on the jaw. Some people are going to say the smile's a little bit crooked. You should even that out. All that stuff. No. She's actually beautiful. With this personality, the shot's absolutely awesome. So I congratulate you. I think you did a great job. And I think that your self-evaluation of the shot, honestly, was really spot on. Okay? All right. How are we doing with Parminda's problem solving here? I saw somebody ask about whether or not his card was big enough. And Parminda, I haven't seen a follow-up, but it looks to me like everybody kind of pretty much nailed it, that you filled your card. So let's get us an update there, okay? Let's see, Tony G. I was going to ask you about strobes. I have 3 400 watt and 1 600 watt. Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, that's a lot of light, man. So that's not bad. But if you're working like in small spaces and you're working close, then yeah, I mean, that gets to be tough. So it's a non-branded SD card. Okay, so Parminder's back here. It's a non-branded SD card. Parminder, then I would really like to see you put that in a computer. Put that card in a computer and let me know what you find out in there, okay? And I think that's going to help us kind of get you to the next step here with troubleshooting that, okay? All right, so next up here, guys, I've got a shot that is not showing the details. So I'll give you the details. I apologize. I don't know why the specs didn't come up on this one. But this one is from Adnan Hussein. He shot this with a Nikon D700, a Nikon 85mm f1.8 lens. The aperture on the shot is f1.8, 1/200th of a second. 1/8000th of a second, ISO 200. Okay, is where his settings are. So this is also Adnan's first post into my Facebook group. He's been shooting for about 35 years, mostly semi-pro. He decided to go full-time a couple of months ago. So welcome to the dark side, Adnan. It's a big jump and a scary jump, but good for you, okay? So this shoot came about because he's looking to add content to his website and also his Instagram account for marketing purposes. So he contacted this young woman. She was a buddy of his from Facebook, and he felt that she really knew her angles and also makeup work. She does a lot of selfies. So he liked her face structure and the way she did her makeup, so he asked her to collaborate. So she agreed. They did this on one of the first dry spring days in Vancouver. So this is Vancouver, so a spring day in Vancouver is not particularly warm. So they headed to the beach. The subject and her mom went along, who was also a good friend of his. They tried a couple different setups. This one was his favorite. He instructed the model to position her limbs, so his words, to position her limbs so that they were mostly diagonal lines, had her face towards the ocean with her eyes looking back to the camera, also chin down slightly. He took 4 or 5 shots, and he liked the expression on this one the best, even though the focus is slightly soft on the eyes. He's just getting used to a new lens, and he found that he had trouble spot focusing in this high contrast situation. Okay? Generally, a high contrast situation makes focusing a lot easier, especially if you're using any kind of autofocus. In post, he used Lightroom and Photoshop, darkened the surrounding area to give her more emphasis, sharpened the eyes, the hair, the lips, and the eyebrows, warmed the color temperature and tint bias to red, smoothed out the outfit wherever it didn't appear streamlined, and he also tried to imitate Irene Rudnick by adding volume to the hair. Not so sure that worked, but we'll talk about that. What would he do differently? In the bright sunlight, he couldn't see his LCD very well, so he didn't notice the shadow on her nose that was created by what was supposed to be his fill flash. He thinks that her excellent makeup technique emphasized her cheeks. Otherwise, the fill was too shallow and too bright to create any definition. He'd also choose a warmer day because it was cold. Okay, so now there's a couple things that I want to point out about this one, guys. First of all, I will tell you, for those of you that aren't in my Facebook group, this shot actually got a lot of really, really positive feedback. And at the same time, there were some people that had some concerns over depth of field and this and that and everything else. But for all the comments that came up, everybody left out what to me was the most obvious issue. So now I'll admit, this is kind of a pet cause of mine. It's one of those things that anytime I see it in a photograph, it really, like, for me, it points against the photograph when I see this. So before I can even talk about her, Sean Vine, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Before I can even talk about her, I have to talk about the fact that the horizon is running downhill. So it's like, okay, the earth is flat, and indeed we're going to fall off or something. Like, there's no reason for that horizon to be running downhill at all. None. I'm all for camera tilts. I do camera tilts a lot. But trust me, if you want something to look creative and you're going to tilt the camera, then tilt the damn camera. When it's off just a little, it's sloppy, okay? So you really got to make sure that you're fixing that horizon line. And the best part of it is those horizon lines are super, super easy to fix in Lightroom and Photoshop. Like, so believe me, I take plenty of pictures where the horizon line is not perfect, but it's easy to fix, okay? So that being said, let's get to the shot. So, and by the way, for me, the reason why I noticed that immediately is because the depth of field is so shallow. It's extremely shallow. I get it. I am apparently one of the only photographers in the world that thinks that it is really ridiculous to put so much emphasis on the background. I'm all about clean backgrounds. I'm all about shallow depth of field. I think I've told you guys before, I actually won an award in junior high school at a science fair for a science project about depth of field. So believe me, depth of field, inside out and backwards. Okay? I live by it. But when you get to a point where it's so out of focus, and the problem with this being so out of focus is there's still so much detail back there, it actually pulls my attention away from the girl, because the girl is like 1/7 of the frame. She's a really, really small piece of the frame. So that being said, and also too, in Adnan's defense here, important disclosure, if you remember the group, you'll know this. Later, after he posted this image, somebody had pointed out the people that were up here, and he did remove them. Honestly, they don't bother me because there's a lot of stuff going on, and like I would take these people out too if we're going to do that. But I'd still rather see the horizon level. The horizon being level is really important. Mike, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, really. So Roy Patton, Roy's like screaming at me here, the feet, the feet, the feet. Roy, I actually don't mind the feet. I mind the arms. So here's the thing. What I don't want to do is I actually don't want to critique the feet, and I actually don't want to critique the arms. I want to make sure, Adnan, that the way you described this to me is not the way you described it to the model. So if I can rewind here, guys, I read this part where he explains, so I'm going to use his words first. Where are we at here? He instructed the model. So these are Adnan's words. I instructed the model to position limbs so they were mostly diagonal lines, face towards the ocean and eyes back to the camera, and chin down slightly. And then I took 4 or 5 shots. So here's the thing. If you have a young woman sitting in front of you and you're telling her, okay, make your arms diagonals. Now turn your face to the ocean, but bring your eyes back to me. Bring your chin down slightly. By the time you do that, the problem that you have is that your subject is so stiff and so aware of not moving. And that's kind of what's going on here, because where I'm struggling with the diagonal lines that you created, I don't mind the lines themselves, but I'm struggling with the fact that her camera right shoulder, which is her left shoulder, is way up here. Then add to the fact that the shirt is off-centered. Why? So it's like she's hunched. So she actually looks very unrelaxed. So I have to be very honest with you. Like, the setting that you have here is not really adding anything to this picture. If this is a picture about the young woman, then I don't see why there's so much setting. And even if it's the idea that it's a young woman at the beach, well, we don't really see much of the beach. So you'd want to change your angle some. But you could afford to get closer, not shoot at f1.8. So if you got a little bit closer and you made her, let's say, even just 1/5 of the frame, at that point, you'd be able to stop down to 2.8, pick up enough depth of field that her eyes would be in focus, not have quite as much space in the background that's not really adding anything. I just think that you would have a much stronger picture. And I also would argue that since you're using the off-camera flash for fill, why not set the flash up so it's straight on her face? And then you don't have the shadow. You don't need to be able to view your LCD to do that. You simply take the approach that I'm going to put the light where I want her eyes to be. If you put the light where you want her eyes to be, then you solve the problem. Juan Salvador, the log next to the girl. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. For me, the background is busy. So that's my opinion. I'm trying to stay open-minded to what Adnan's trying to accomplish here with the shot. my feeling is that there's you try to do a little too much here. So yeah, Juan, the fact that you're asking about that log, I don't disagree with the idea that the log's a distraction. Rolando, thank you so much. Really, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. But at the same time, I think that this is one of those things, Juan, that if the girl was a little bit more relaxed and we had a little more energy going on with her personality, I think what we would have is less opportunity. See, the thing you guys got to understand, there's science behind this, okay? If we had the eye contact and the expression and the personality and the body language were relaxed, we would wind up ignoring all this other stuff. In fact, I guarantee you the people that picked out these blurry people, so the folks in my Facebook group that noticed those blurry people right away, they never would, I'm confident they would not have mentioned it if there was enough about this young lady to really hold our attention. So yeah, I mean, we could also argue that it could be a lower camera angle. Let's see, Dave Dundas, even here, it's not necessarily an outfit that I would think of for the beach. Yeah, I mean, all of these things are certainly, I don't disagree with any of them. I think where I struggle here is that you're trying to accomplish just a little bit too much. And I also have to be honest, like, this is one of those shots, it doesn't really need high-speed sync. It's an overcast day. It's just not that bright. Bren, you could crop. If you've watched too many of my videos, if you watched a bunch of my videos, Bren, one of the things you'll learn about me, I believe in cropping in camera. Now, it's not to say you never crop in post. I crop in post all the time. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to become the photographer that is shooting this much and using this much. That's wasting a lot of money. All of you spend a lot of money for those pixels. Use them. Pixels equate to quality. That's why you spend the money for them. So don't waste them. Don't be the photographer that's like, yeah, I'll crop it in post because I'm never sure what I want. So that's the thing that you don't want to do. Oh, John Cover, I assure you, the shallow depth of field is extremely trendy. All the zombie photographers love the extreme shallow depth of field. And the irony of it is, shallow depth of field is not new. Shallow depth of field for portraits is not new. Crap, they did that back in the 60s. I was doing it in the 70s and 80s. There's nothing new about it. Now people get all hyped about how far can we push it. You know, you guys all know Manny Ortiz from time to time drops in on my TogChats here. He just posted a video last week. Manny's a Sony guy. In fact, he's definitely one of the he's definitely one of the new like Sony sponsored guys. Okay, so congrats for him. He just did a video comparing a lens that's a couple $100 to like over $1,000. And when you look at the bokeh in the background, there's a difference, but there's barely a difference. So it's honestly, and Manny's too nice to say it, but for me, it's the perfect example. The people that buy the one that's over $1,000 are just morons, period. They're morons because they're also being incredibly lazy. This is also why equipment manufacturers will never sponsor me, okay? The worst part of it is if you truly understand how to use depth of field. So, you know, and I love Manny, great guy, but he kind of promotes the same thing as Jason Lanier does, this whole, shoot wide open to have good bokeh. There's a lot of ways to get blurry backgrounds, a lot of ways. And if you truly understand depth of field and you truly understand how it works, you don't have to spend stupid amounts of money for glass that can see a candle 6 football fields away. You just don't need that. You simply don't. So that's the challenge with this blurry background stuff. But I would argue this is the perfect example of where the background is still a bit too busy, that even at 1.8, I actually find it all to be a big distraction. That's kind of where my problem is. Adnan, so here's the last piece that I want to get to. Adnan, you just took a jump, and this is what I really wanted to focus on for your image. You just took a jump to going full-time as a photographer. So I'm making an assumption here that you're paying your bills with your photography. I promise you, this kind of picture, not going to make you money. Get closer. Get your subject relaxed. Get personality. If this young woman's mother was with her, based on her looks, I'm assuming she's somewhere between the ages of 16 and 24. I'd be guessing she's between 18 and 20. That would be my guess. She looks too serious, too stiff for someone of that age. Get your subjects to relax, let them have a little bit more fun, and you're going to have much, much more marketable images. Again, going back to Damien's shot, if we're looking at high-end portraiture, there's a lot of things we could nitpick the crap out of this picture. But the fact of the matter is, this picture, this will sell. People will pay money for this. Much more so than they're going to do this picture. So that's the challenge. And the other thing I would encourage you, since you're shooting for your marketing, obviously it sucks if you're in a place like Vancouver where the weather is really tough. I've never been to Vancouver, but I've been to Seattle. I know they're kind of similar. The first thing a photographer in Seattle tells you, in fact, my very first trip to Seattle, the very first thing the photographers told me when they met me at the airport was they started talking about the Seattle softbox. And I'm like, what the hell is the Seattle softbox? And they all started laughing. They're like, clearly you've never been to Seattle before. I'm like, no, it's my first trip. And then they explained to me it's the weather. It's the fact that it's always cloudy, so you have this nice, even, overcast light. So the challenge that you have to deal with here is that when you're going to do outdoor location stuff, it is very hit or miss. It may sometimes take you several attempts to get what you need from a lighting standpoint. But I would just love to see you really pay more attention to your subject and not be quite as formal and stiff with them. Okay? All right, gang. So listen, I want to finish up here since we're at 7:30, but I'll spend a couple more minutes. Let's get a couple questions in. How are we doing with Parminda? Have we, Parminda? I apologize because wasn't getting all the information from you that we needed. Have we gotten anywhere here with? Let's see, many or so 120 gig may actually be. Yeah, Trevor, I've heard about that deal where you buy these cards on eBay and they're not as big as they say. But so we haven't gotten a response back to see if Parminda has put the card in his camera yet, have we? Or in his computer yet. So no, we haven't. Okay, so hopefully he'll get back to us and he'll let us know. So a couple other questions. If you guys have some questions, go ahead and dump them in here. I've got a couple that are in the group waiting for, in the queue waiting for me. So I'll go to those first. NSX diffusion filters. I'd like to add one to my tool set. Any glaring reason not to? That depends on what you want to use the filter for. Are you looking? So if you're still here, I apologize because I know you put that question up really, really early on, Ennis. But filters are great. I like filters. Probably the ones that there it is. So Ennis, I've got your question here. Oh, diffusion filters. Did I miss that word? Okay, no. Okay, so diffusion filters. I hate diffusion filters with a passion. Now, back in the 1980s, I used diffusion filters all the time. In fact, okay, I'm going to get myself in trouble here. So let me see if I can do this in as non-political a way as possible. But for those of you that follow the photo news, a lot of the photo blogs had an article today. They just released the official portrait for Melania Trump. So it's the official First Lady's portrait. And the general consensus is that Glamour Shots is alive and well today. It literally looks like it's shot through a diffusion filter like they did at those stores in the mall called Glamour Shots back in the 1980s. It's really unfortunate because, she's a beautiful woman. But, wow, trust me. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up the picture. So this is not at all political. This is the fact that this woman's a public figure, a beautiful public figure. And this picture is just bizarrely soft focus. So I don't mean out of focus. I mean diffused. And I'm not a fan of diffusing filters, mainly because there's so much that you can do in post easily that gives you more control over the sharpness variables and also, more importantly, the contrast variables. Understand that the minute you put a diffusion filter on your camera, it's going to crush your contrast. Now, yeah, you can go into post-production and you can pull some contrast back out. But, so Parminda, if you're downloading those pictures to your computer right now, please tell me yes or no. How many pictures are you getting onto your computer? Only 169 or more than 169? And then the second question is, whether you're Windows or Mac, it doesn't matter. While you're in either Windows Explorer or Mac Finder, look to see how much storage space that card has. So confirm that the computer is saying it's got as much space as the card supposedly has. The other thing that could be an issue that I didn't see anybody mention, it's possible that you're eating up a lot of dry space if you're shooting both RAW and high-quality JPEGs at the same time, because that means you're creating two fairly large files. So, yeah, Tony G, we won't even talk about Beyonce's maternity shots. I think bizarre is a really appropriate word for those. If you haven't seen Beyonce's maternity shots, you know what I'm talking about, just go Google them. You'll get it. So anyway, Ennis, diffusion, not the favorite thing in the world for me. I'm a big fan of polarizing filters, especially if you do like landscape work, that kind of stuff. Neutral density filters. I'd rather use a neutral density instead of using high-speed sync, but that's just my thing because, you know, I'm old school and I'm not a zombie, but because that's how we used to do it. But other than that, all my lenses, I generally have neutral density filters on my lenses as protection. I'm still a big believer in that. But yeah, I hope that helps, okay? Dave Gast, would I be okay using ISO up to 800 for headshots in a tight space with LEDs that advertise at 750 watt, but are probably quite a bit less? Well, so Dave, the question with that ISO 800, it depends on your camera, depends on how it handles ISO 800. I have a Nikon D810, so I've got megapixels out the wazoo. I would not want to make it a habit of shooting ISO 800. Could I? In other words, oh my God, would my pictures like look horrible? I could, but I'm a big believer whenever possible of working at base ISO. So understand, you know, it's a misnomer the way that cameras are marketed, and I'm not making the camera manufacturers evil, but you know, we're taught that you have all these different ISO options for your cameras. You don't. The fact of the matter is, every digital camera on the market today has one ISO. One. That's referred to as the base ISO. And that is the sensitivity of the chip. And there's a whole bunch of really hardcore technical terms that I don't even remember all of them. So I'm not going to pretend that I remember all of them, but I promise you this information is correct and accurate. The ISO sensitivity of the chip is one sensitivity. It's software interpolation that allows you to increase the sensitivity. So depending on the make of the chip and how it's put together, and depending on the quality of the software program written, they can get the software up to the point where practically it's seeing in the dark, which some cameras do today. The simple fact of the matter is, though, the second you go above your base ISO, you begin to lose quality. Now, for most higher-end cameras, going from like ISO 100, if that's the base, up to 200 or 400, the comparable results are going to be negligible in difference. So I hate to sound wishy-washy about your answer, Dave, but it really depends on the camera, whether it's a crop sensor, whether it's a full-frame sensor, and just really how well it responds at that. But as a rule for me, I would be uncomfortable making 800 a habit for headshots. Now, the other piece of that equation, Dave, it's worth noting for the rest of you too, how big are these headshots going to be used? If they're only ever going to appear online, like, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, that kind of stuff, hey, go for it, okay? So, Jimmy, yeah, you look up some of those pictures. It's kind of scary, isn't it? So you should feel good about your work. So, Dave, I hope that helps, okay? Niku, what's the best way to control the model? And I mean, how can you put the model to feel that emotion that you want to capture? Because I think we capture the emotion with good light. Well, no. You don't. I would. So just to clarify, and Nico, I have a feeling that English is a second language for you, and that's okay. So I just want to make sure that we're kind of working on the same page. Lighting definitely impacts mood and emotion. Okay. So that being said, it is. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. Parminda, so you remove the card without ejecting. You do have 169 images, 116 gig free. Huh. Yeah, that is interesting. I would go ahead and pursue some of the information that some of the people gave you about the different brands that are compatible with your camera, etc. And then, there's a little thing sticking in the back of my head. And guys, I'm not a gear junkie. So, but look into this. Some of the lower ranged DSLRs, if I'm not mistaken, regardless of the size of the card, they're only capable of managing discs up to a certain size. I'm not saying that's a solution here, but going back to your camera manual and checking on that information would at least be one step to make sure that you don't have a problem there. But I do seem to recall that there are some lower end cameras that will only handle discs up to a certain file size. So you might look into that. Okay. So anyway, back to the lighting question with the models, etc. Light definitely can help you communicate emotion, etc. But you can't rely on that. You use the light and the emotion that you can bring with the light. You use that to enhance the emotion you're trying to work with the model. For me, I've described this many times. I'll describe it again. Basically, I work like a movie director. If you ever watch kind of the behind the scenes clips, from movies where the director is working with the actors, you'll hear them talking about the mood, the feelings, the emotion, what they want them to communicate. You never hear a movie director saying, yes, I want you to tilt your head this way. I want you to turn your head that way. I want you to express this way. You never hear a movie director saying that. Basically, they're encouraging, oh, Nico, you're totally fine. You're going to basically look for ways to communicate to your subject what the mood is. And basically, that's how I work with them. I am going to do a series of videos that kind of show how I walk through that. I'll be perfectly honest with you guys. What I'm trying to put together is I don't want to do a video that's the equivalent of a Hurleyism app, meaning what works for Peter Hurley is not going to work for Joe Edelman or for you. What works for Joe Edelman is not going to work for you or work for Peter Hurley. So I don't want to do it in a way where it's like, yes, say this and it'll work, because that's not going to help you at all. And that's why I always give you guys this kind of an answer as opposed to saying, yeah, tell your model this. What I tell my model is not going to work for you. Like, we have some college students in here. So these are guys that are like 19, 20 years old. At my age, I can say things that are borderline inappropriate, but in a fun way, in a teasing way, because I'm not a threat to the girl. Whereas if the 20-year-old guy said that, he'd get kicked in the groin in like 2 seconds flat. So the kind of things that I would say won't necessarily work for the next person, et cetera. So it's really more about the concept. And that's why I give the analogy of the movie director and the way they work. Light helps communicate that. Actually, great question. Count 0. Never will I use music to get the model in the mood. There's a real simple reason why. There's always music playing in my studio in the background. Just random noise. So that's not quiet, mainly because I hate to hear myself think. Okay? If your model is into the music, that's where her attention lies. You need your model into the shot. When they're making movies, they don't play music to get the actors in the mood, do they? So these are actors. So you're asking about, hey, how do we get our models to act for us and give us the right personality, right? So you're asking, how do we get our models to act? That's where the emotion comes from. So take a lesson from actors. They don't do it by playing cool music. No. They focus on the emotion, on the intent, on what they're trying to communicate, and then they deliver that. So there is music in my studio quietly as noise, and I will tell you straight up, anytime I have a girl in the set and she starts bebopping to the song that's on, I literally walk over and turn it down. And I explain why. I don't like reprimand her or anything. I'm not a jerk about it, but I tell her, it's like, hey, I need your focus on the mood that you're creating. So again, that comes back to understanding psychology. I guarantee you there are a lot of photographers that do the music thing. There's probably a lot of really, really good photographers that do the music thing. But the science proves they're just making their job harder with the music. It is not helping them accomplish their goal. They think it is because they like it. So yeah, and that's why, you know, in the movies, that's what you see. When you see a photo shoot, yeah, they're blaring the music and the models are into it. No, it's just the simple psychology, cognitive psychology. It does not work. It works against you more than it helps you. Okay. Okay, let's try and get like 2 more questions in here. Okay, so count 0. Do I calibrate my cameras? I search for channel for calibration, color management. No, I've done no videos about that yet. I do not calibrate my cameras. No, and I do calibrate my monitors. I use the Spider system, but I don't calibrate the cameras. Never had a need to at all. Okay. Casino, I don't need large prints, but can you give me another reason to step up from APS-C to full frame? No. Like, seriously. So once again, this would be why I don't get equipment sponsors. If you're happy with the images you're getting from APS-C, then no. And certainly, I'll tell you right now, to make a large print, that's not a reason to step up to full frame. I've made large prints shooting from my Sony APS-C cameras, my Sony a6000 when I used the Sony. I've even made a couple large prints out of my Panasonic Lumix GH4, which is a micro 4/3 sensor. I did it just to try it out. I want to see what it do. They're great. Okay. You know, understand any piece of technology has its limitations. Okay. I will admit I'm a full frame junkie in the sense that I like the full frame because I like the dynamic range you get from them. I'm very, very happy with the way the Nikon D810 and the color engine that Nikon has in the camera processes images. So I like it a lot. I will tell you that the Sony, the A7R2, those cameras, I love the way Sony processes their images. And it's the same sensor as the Nikon, but the Sony color engine is actually a little nicer. But I'm very happy with them. I love them. I love the range. I like having that file size. But I would tell you that unless there is something that you are finding as an obstacle, in other words, I want to do this and I'm not able to get the quality that I want out of my APS-C camera, there's literally no reason, there's no reason to change. Guys, don't get hung up on that. Does the camera look professional? I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've mentioned to you guys a lot recently. So I own 2 Nikon D810 bodies and a whole bunch of Nikkor lenses. I own 4 Panasonic cameras. I have 3 Panasonic GH4s and I have 1 Panasonic G7. I have been dying to find a reason to be able to go with the Micro Four Thirds because it's smaller, it's lighter, all that stuff. It's just not quite enough for me in terms of what I like to be able to edit with and do my retouching. Part of why I do like the full frame is I love to be able to get way into the nitty gritty when I'm doing my fine retouching. The full frame just simply gives me more file to do that with than what an APS-C does. Because, don't think that there's this mentality that, you get better pictures with a full frame. No, you don't. You get better pictures with your skill, period. Okay? I've got equally as many big prints hanging in my house taken with this as I do with my Nikons and my Sonys. Well, when I had the Sonys. I don't have the Sonys now. So, yeah, don't get too hung up on that. So, Zoom Chris, you'd be shocked. Models will get dancing to the music. Absolutely. Yeah, they do. That's human. I do it too. So I shouldn't be bebopping to the music because I should be focused on the model and that. It totally happens. So, okay. April, you're right. The A6000 does look like a toy, but it's an amazing camera. Amazing camera. So, should you buy an 80D or a 60? You should try them first. Seriously. That's like, I will tell you guys honestly, and I don't even know how to pronounce that name. I'm so sorry. But that's the worst question you can ever ask of people. So please, and I mean this sincerely, please don't ask questions like that because all you're going to do is get a bunch of useless opinions. Okay. Obviously the 80D is the camera that all the vloggers like to use. And honestly, it's not even that good. Even Casey Neistat, who made the 80D such a big deal, he doesn't use the 80D anymore. He moved over to Sony. Okay. So Morgan, hey guys. So here, even though I was supposed to be off of here 20 minutes ago, there's a young lady in here that you should all get to know because you're going to get to know her this summer. She just posted the woot woot in here. Her name is Morgan Bukis. That's how you say that last name, Bukis. She told me that today. Morgan is going to be my intern for the summer. Yeah, isn't it crazy how they let me mess with like the minds of America's youth when it comes to photography? It's kind of mind-boggling. But anyway, you guys will get to not only see Morgan, but you're going to get to learn from her, and you're going to get to share some learning experiences with her over the summer. So I have a feeling she'll be checking us out on a few more of these talk chats between now and then. She'll be starting with me in the beginning of June, and you guys will know all about it when the time comes. So listen, guys. Hey, Roy, yeah, I will say, if you're going from like a D80 to the GH5, that would be a huge step up, Roy. That GH5 looks like a really, really sweet camera. Really sweet camera. But do understand, you're going to a smaller sensor. Now, the GH5's done a lot of things to kind of overcome that issue, but it's still a smaller sensor, so it has its limitations. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying really, really understand what your limitations are so that you can look down the road with your photography in terms of what you think you want to be doing, the kind of stuff you want to get into. That's really the whole idea. Okay? All right, gang. So listen, I am going to say goodnight. This was supposed to be 60 minutes. Here I am it's an hour and 20 minutes. But listen, you guys are awesome. So clearly, you guys love this Q&A thing. I have a feeling when we expand TogChat to 4 nights a week, it's going to be 2 nights of Q&A. So the bottom line is I'm going to be back here Wednesday night, 6:30, same time, a full hour of Q&A. And believe me, if you have not been here for the Q&A TogChats yet, take what we just did in the last 20 minutes, put it on steroids, and that's what goes on Wednesday nights. It's really, really awesome. It's actually the most fun one for me. Okay? So in the meantime, gang, thank you all so much for hanging out with me tonight. Thanks for participating. All you guys that have been trying to help out Parminda, thank you, Parminda. I understand there's some posts in the group. Yitzhak, that's how we say that. Awesome. Thank you. I will follow up with you also, Parminda, in the group to try and make sure that we get your situation resolved. Guys, you know the drill. Number one, please make sure that you leave a comment, not here in the chat, but underneath the video. And you know how we wrap this up, guys. So like always, please remember.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go and pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.